Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to the podcast. I appreciate the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Continue to follow the podcast on social media, Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is all one word. At Twitter, X at Social Work Rants, and Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants podcast. Hit that like button. Follow the podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast, and of course on the audio. Like, share, subscribe, download podcast episodes. And again, shout out to everybody that takes the time out to listen or watch uh, the podcast as we count down to get closer to episode 200. So I think going on like I think this episode might be 180, 181 by the time it airs. So yeah, so and again, as of this recording, is some mental health awareness month. There's always mental health awareness month, like 365, of the work that we do every day with our clients, patients, participants, whatever we call the people we serve. Uh, and yes, mental health is a big need. It's been a big need uh, to help people in the country. So shout out to everybody that does the amazing work in the field. So this episode is brought to you by Bash Moreno Consulting, doing providing financial education for Gen X, older millennials of color in the sandwich generation. For more information, go to bashmoreno.com. Taking clients at this time. So if you need some help with some finances, basically doing financial counseling, we do a whole psychosocial where you're struggling with currently, what you trying to short term accomplish and get you to kind of like a treatment plan to get you situated and feel more financially stable with your finances. So tap in if you're interested. My guess is this time. Uh, Funny how social media works, especially on LinkedIn. We're able to connect, and follow, and all the things on social media. Teresa Caraballo, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to be here and to finally meet you. As Bass has said, like we've been connected in LinkedIn now, I think for over a year, and it's kind of the first time that we've met. And I'm really excited to chat with you and also to kind of let everyone know what's going on.
Yeah, awesome. I know. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to connect and talk all things related to social work and business. I know recently, congratulations, you got your LLC and
Yep.
with your business. So for we we'll talk about that in a bit. But let people know, for those who don't know you, who you are and what you do in this interesting field of social work.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll go kind of a little bit before social work just to get an idea of like where my head is at now and why I got to where I got today. But I'm actually a Latina, Dominican. Um, I'm from the Bronx originally, actually.
Hey,
Yeah, raised in the
yes.
Bronx. And I ended up relocating out of the Bronx in 2016 after I graduated from grad school. So I'm a Columbia University alumni, Columbia School of Social Work. And I attended Hunter College for my bachelor's. And basically, when I didn't really know what social work was, but I got into psychology at Hunter. Originally, I thought I was going to become a PA or a doctor. That's what I went to school for my first year of college. And I'm terrible at chemistry, so that was not for me. I had to completely change course. But honestly, it was a blessing, I would say, from God and from all the above, because I've been doing social work as long as I can remember. Like in middle school, I went to, a school in the South Bronx, in Webster Avenue, where there was a lot of crime. There was a lot of issues going on with teen pregnancies and things like that. And little did I know, little me, also in middle school, I was actually advocating then about the importance of safe sex practices,
Oh,
condoms,
wow.
and awareness, of making sure that if my friends that were, now pregnant, that they were getting their PAPs and they were doing their checkups. And it became sort of a big issue in my middle school to the point that the adolescent rep program of Montefiore Hospital got involved in my middle school to
Mm.
educate us. And I sort of became an advocate. So that was like the beginning of my social work thing that I had no idea I was doing social work then. And thanks to a professor that I met at Hunter College, Dr. Lisa Pacey Cleven, she actually introduced me to social work. She said, a lot of what you do and the way you think has a lot to do with systems. Like you have a passion and a mind of doing that. So why don't you, go ahead and apply to social work schools? And I did that, and it's kind of history from there. And I had a really, really hard time navigating the field when I graduated, especially because I decided, hey, I'm going to leave New York, go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, out of all places, with my then ex-husband. And it was quite a shock because I'm a person that grew up in a city, grew up in the Bronx, grew up in apartment complexes, and then transitioned to live in a city of all places where it's very urban, it's very suburban, sorry, not urban. And it was like an Amish community. So it's known for being an Amish community. So when I got there, it was quite a shock. I actually ended up in methadone maintenance and addiction. A lot of my background when I went to graduate school was actually working with veterans, working in addiction, working with mental health. My first year internship was actually at Metropolitan Hospital
Okay.
out of Harlem. And then I did a summer internship that I signed up for on my own through the Center for Court Innovation to work in their human trafficking and prostitution division in Hunts Point, so in Bronx criminal court.
Mm.
And then from there, I went into the VA because I kind of had a lot of passion of working in substance use and veterans. I took a lot of interest in that. And I did some courses at Columbia related to military social work. My then ex-husband was a fellow veteran as well. So that kind of drove me into continuing social work and dealing with harm reduction and addiction. So my first job was in a methadone maintenance clinic where I actually worked a lot with Spanish-speaking populations, specifically Puerto Rico. Like there was a hub of folks from Puerto Rico coming into Lancaster because they had El Centro Hispano. They had an actual facility where folks will go and come into treatment from Puerto Rico, and they sort of stayed in Lancaster.
Mm.
So they were in need of a lot of resources. And in this community, there wasn't a lot of Spanish speaking clinicians at all. So I worked there, but I found myself a little challenged because in substance use and social work, like they do go hand in hand, but there's also so many different specialists that work in
Right.
substance use.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always supportive, to fellow social workers and getting licensure and figuring out what you want to do. And the hours were, I was working 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. because it was a methadone clinic.
Mm.
Um, so it was a bit hard. I was transitioning into a new community personally. I
Right.
was in a substance abuse job that was pretty taxing. I got my first spiel of like client and clinician safety where there was a lot of threats, and I'm like, okay, they did warn me about this in grad school, but like I don't necessarily know what to do with it. Like I didn't think it would happen to me. So it was a lot of transitioning with that. And I sort of just stayed in substance abuse and mental health for a long time, going into rehabilitation facilities and working as a co-occurring therapist. Then lastly, I landed myself in psychiatry, which had been also a big passion of mine in graduate school. That's what I did my degree on, specifically advanced clinical practice. Um, and I ended up at Lancaster Behavioral Hospital, which ended up opening as the first freestanding hospital in Lancaster County. And still there, even though opened this huge hospital and serviced a lot of different communities. There was a big need, especially for adolescent folks, because hospitals for adolescents, as you probably know, Bass, they're like far in between in the United
Yeah.
States. So that was a service that we provided. I didn't really work too much with adolescents, but I took a passion in doing the intensive care unit, where I worked with people that were struggling with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and psychotic disorders in general. And that sort of was my niche. Like I really thrived in that.
Okay.
Um, I really, really thrived in that field and working with the population. I have a way of being pretty creative with clients, and actually adapting skills and using that as a form of therapy. So I found myself doing things like activities that were based on like walking or drawing or finding something that was their passion to sort of drive the therapeutic relationship to then, establish a relationship. Because when folks are psychotic, it's really hard to be like, okay, let's go ahead and breathe together. Let's go ahead and
Right.
meditate, right? Because there's so much stimulation happening
Yes.
in their minds that it's crucial to kind of work on activities that are going to help them soothe and also connect with you and start building that trusting, especially trust, right? Building that trusting relationship.
Hmm.
So I certified myself with CTR. It was great. Then COVID hit. And here I am working in a psychiatric hospital during COVID. No one prepared anyone for this,
Yeah.
not the field of social work, not in medical field, anywhere. Like we had no idea, right, that we were going to get hit with this.
Hmm.
And I was working a lot. At the time of COVID, we had a lot of issues going on with folks that were psychotic, and at the same time, we're treating them for COVID. How do we explain this to someone that's psychotic and really struggling and having a hard time with their own psychiatric illness? So a lot happened at that time. It was a really testing time for a lot of different social workers. I wouldn't say just myself, but particularly for me, I lost a colleague while I
Hmm.
was at the hospital from COVID. So it really, really hit me, losing my colleague, Candace. She was the one that kind of pushed me to get my C, my LCSW. And she was a really, really good social worker. She actually died by exposing herself with working with populations. She was in school social work. So she actually still saw her kids and worked with her kids during COVID, and she got exposed. And, that sort of was the end of the story for her, unfortunately, but she died doing what she loved the most. And I think it was important to kind of highlight her too, because she was a big, big push for me to get my life together and go for my C, because I was procrastinating on that for a little bit and had some challenges too. Um, and because COVID was occurring, we started getting clients from all over the place, from folks that were incarcerated, from
Hmm.
folks outside of Pennsylvania. We just started seeing clients from everywhere. And for me, unfortunately, I had a really traumatic experience where I was assaulted at the hospital. And that kind of, on top of already grieving my friend and my colleague, then I had that incident at the hospital, and it kind of really shaped me. It really shook me up a lot. Um, so I had some challenges and, recovering from that injury physically. And I also, had some work to do psychiatrically and seeking therapy for myself and working on figuring out, like, is this a good time for me to kind of take a pause out of the field and work on myself? Because this is where, self-care kind of kicks in, where you have to
Right.
recognize the importance of putting yourself first. And it's really hard for us to do that in helping professions. So I did challenge myself a lot. There was a lot of back and forth of, should I leave? Should I not leave? And eventually I decided it was time for me to step away for my own mental health and my own self-care. And I was able to give myself about a month before I started applying for other jobs. And now I'm a whole 180 and I work in insurance. So, and I'm doing more, which I never thought I would be. I've always done micro social work, where I'm working directly with clients and I have a lot of engagement and interaction face to face. Now I'm doing more of macro, where I'm actually doing a lot of case management. And I've always done a lot of case management with my clients because as social workers, like that's what I think puts us apart sometimes from other professions.
Right.
Like we, deal with systems and everything all together in healing clients. So, um, now I forgot what I was going to say with that, but basically I ended up going into working with AmeriHealth, and that job, since I transitioned within a month, I gave myself a month of a booster. I was able to take in the job. Now I'm working from home and adjusting to that whole working from home environment and dealing with clients in case management. But I think what really drove me then, when I started this job is I was able to help people from a larger scale. Like I went from being frustrated of, well, this specific client doesn't have, these resources. How can I help them? And now I'm working, with so many different clients, so many different people, and I'm able to impact a large community. And it's not just solely in the state of Pennsylvania, but now I'm seeing myself working in Delaware, in Michigan.
Hey, Delaware.
Yeah, Delaware, Michigan, and Louisiana. And I kind of have my hands tapped in a lot of different places because I am bilingual. So, and I have my certification to conduct medical translation. So
Mm.
I pretty much deal with a lot of different states with AmeriHealth as a whole. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm still working, with AmeriHealth full time. And I want to just pause, Bass. I know I've been talking for a long time. Let me know if you want me to
Yeah.
say anything or.
Well, yeah. Well, number one, condolences to you for losing, your colleague. Rest in peace to Candace. I know I've kind of the podcast kind of really hit gear during COVID, and then all these ideas popped in my head. I'm like, just do whatever popped in my head, just do it. And obviously, with you know, not trying to get myself into any major trouble, but and it kind of like the podcast kind of took off, like I said, pandemic and stuff. So and also grieving clients, grieving my mom during COVID. So it's definitely COVID is a sore subject for for me in many different ways. And then when I got it in November, so it was November 2023 for the first time. That definitely messed up my mental health a little bit too. So definitely that's important to keep talking about it, and people kind of stop talking about COVID. Period. I mean, it's still a thing. Is not obviously not 2020 anymore, but it's still out there. There's apparently just saw something. There's another variant out,
Mhm.
so it's like you still could get sick, and people still dying. Just not in large amounts like it was before. So just kind of, if you need to wear a mask, you get sick, got a cold or something, wear a mask. So it's just that simple. You said in Webster, where Webster and what?
It was 173. Well,
Oh,
the school
you
complex was, I think, in 176. PS 70.
well,
What's the name
176
of
and 176 in Webster, really not far from where I lived. So
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah,
So we were eventually next. So basically, we crossed paths then and then now.
exactly. And then
That's all.
we neighbors, living in PA and I'm living in Delaware. So it's funny
Yeah, yeah, for
how
sure.
life works. So yeah, so thank you for that whole background of your extensive work. And I'm sorry you got assaulted while at work, but kind of I almost I've been threatened a couple times by individuals who were psychotic. So I know that feeling a bit, and just working in tough areas like Jamaica, Queens, and Far Rockaway, like you kind of like do what you need to do and get the hell out out of those areas
Yeah,
as quickly as possible. And obviously, living in New York, gotta be careful with the subway and just everything. And so just life. Just be careful. But it sparks. Did that kind of not only spark working where you're working now, but did that incident spark you doing your business, or that was just after the fact?
So, I mean, this was actually before I even, decided to implement and open my business. I think for a long time I was thinking about it, and a lot of it has to do with, dealing with imposter syndrome and kind of again having that push and pushing myself and believing in me that I could do this. I have all the skills and all the assets to do it. So that experience didn't really completely take me away from my passion of working with clients. I think when I decided to transition, it was more so to make sure ethically that I'm there 100% for myself and that I'm also there 100% for my clients. And I think that sometimes it's so hard for us to do that because it's easy for us to kind of bury ourselves in our work.
Mm.
And we're so used to being high demand as social workers, and we're so used to taking a lot of crises and dealing with them, and we see it, that sometimes we can be desensitized to it. And I always, from when I worked at the hospital, I had already known, like, this is my niche. I know I could do really well with people that have bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, schizoaffective. Like, I have this way of just connecting with clients, and got certified in CTR with the Beck Institute, that I know that I still want to drive and do that. And the big thing with my business, what really pushed me this time, was I actually lost my grandmother last year.
Mm.
And my grandmother and me, we were kind of like buddy buddies. I mean, she was my world. And she always pushed me. I learned a lot of social work, I can say, from her too, as being a curandera and being a healer in the community in Dominican Republic. My grandma, had very little education, but she sort of knew how to connect with people and bring people together. And I lost sort of a connection, while I was grieving her too. And another big thing that she embedded in me and my family was the importance of natural medicine, the importance of healing and connecting and having that sense of community. And I think that in dealing with telework, sometimes it's hard to have that sense of community and that drive. And I know that at AmeriHealth, I'm helping people with a lot of case management related needs, but I'm not, doing the individualized approach with therapy. Like, I'm not following them
Mm.
as I would have while I was working at the hospital or doing direct practice.
Right.
So a lot that drove me is, like, I really wanted to find that connection again of working with people, and now, almost honoring my grandmother, and doing natural based medicines in combination with everything I already know.
Mm.
Um, right now in mental health. And I've still kind of very early in my development phases of the of Esmeralda Wellness Haven LLC, but I know that's kind of where I want to go.
Oh, interesting. So how does more specifically, like, how your uh business help people? Like, what was the purpose of your business?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, the main purpose, I want to actually engage in telehealth. So, I'm still going to be engaging in telemedicine and taking on clients and caseloads. I also want to do some consulting and some coaching. And a lot of it is going to be when I'm working on getting certified in herbal medicine,
Mm.
and Reiki and healing. So, I'm actually working on a lot of different things related to wholeness. Um, and more of the, like, spirituality based level of it. I think that it's a little different than what I've done professionally, but it's actually very so much connected with me personally.
Mm.
And I still want to service clients that are very high risk. I still want to work with folks that are dealing with severe mental illness, is what, we classified it as with the Beck Institute. And I think that, I want to take on folks that I'm able to work with. It could be long term or short term, and work on skills and activating their passions and building that sense of community and connection. Um, But like I said, it's still really early on in what I'm trying to do and drive myself to do. But I think that for right now, I know for sure that I want to incorporate natural medicine. And a big part of why I also want to do that is because I myself have been engaged in with a naturopathic doctor now for a year,
Mm.
a little over a year. I've been engaged with a naturopathic doctor, and I've seen actually the wellness of it, the goodness of how treating systems and really targeting the source helps with being able to help people heal. So I know that medications are important when you're dealing with somebody that's in psychosis or things like that. I'm not saying that those are things that I'm not going to be advocating for, because I've seen firsthand how they work and how they can help people. But I certainly also want to take a step back and actually start really figuring out naturally what are some things that we can recommend to people to self-soothe in a healthy way, and how we can get some of those systems to start working and balancing themselves out.
No, I like that. That's definitely um interesting work, especially as we like many of us trying to get into at least doing more natural medicines or just eating healthier and natural ways and all the stuff that the US has trying to kill us. I was gonna be conspiracy theorists and kind of like the all these insurance companies and doctors are working together with the FDA to kind of poison us and like see the doctor and give medicine and you get sick again. So you can kind of see how that actually is kind of true without sounding like a conspiracy theorist. So I like how you trying to like do something holistic and uh, in terms of mental health. So um, I want to go back to how like the navigation of you moving to a new state, um, and then having to work while still navigating living and getting adjusting into living into a new state, new city. Like how was that for you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I mean, and I've done that twice now, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But basically when I had moved to Lancaster, it was really hard. And I know I said before that it was hard because I was adjusting from going from a completely like urban life to the suburbs. And there was some Spanish speaking communities, but we were still very much the minority.
Mm,
And a lot of the challenges that I had while working in the field in Lancaster is, even though the city was diverse, like the actual county itself wasn't. So I had a lot of challenges with people taking me seriously. I had a lot of challenges with some clients not wanting to deal with me at all because of my background, because I was Latina. So I had a lot of issues with that. And also, even I'm trying to see how I can say this in a very nice way. But I think a lot of what I faced that fed into my imposter syndrome throughout this entire time in the field is that I had to prove myself over and over and over and over and over. I think that as a Latina, I struggled a lot to actually show my worth when it came to negotiating, when it came to me being able to present like even a case study with my colleagues, and like having them look at things at a different way and not like set in what they were accustomed to.
mhm,
I'm a very big advocate when it comes to cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness. It's what drives my practices with all my clients, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity. It's important to be able to assess for that and know how it's impacted and shaped their lives and how it's causing their symptoms or whatever, right? So there's been so much talk about trauma informed care in the health field and in the mental health field, but there's still very much a lot of issues when it comes to oppressive interactions with just
mhm.
clinicians, with how we deal with clients when you're trying to advocate for a client. I know that it's really easy for folks to say like, well, she's coming out aggressive, and it's a microaggression, by calling us aggressive.
Right.
So I had this colleague that coined the term, she's just passionate. So I'm like, I'm going to run with that because I'm not aggressive with what I'm trying to say when I'm advocating for this individual. I am passionate in the way I speak and the way I'm trying to carry myself and what I'm trying to advocate for this client. So I did face a lot of that. And of course, like, I still have an accent here and there, especially when I'm nervous and I'm trying to talk and words slip and I'm trying to say things in a good way. And I have people trying to correct me grammatically when I'm speaking or what I'm saying. So I think because of, being a Latina in this type of environment, it was very hard for me to be taken seriously in certain roles. And a big thing that happened to me while at the hospital, at Lancaster Behavioral Health when it opened, is that I was put into the admissions team. Like I was taken out of the clinical team and put into the admissions team when we were opening the hospital. And there was no structure. I like built that team myself with little experience, not knowing, hiring people. That's where I met Candace. I was able to hire her into the admissions program, into the admissions department to work with me. I worked constantly, to the point of exhaustion when I was working in the admissions department then. And I felt like I proved myself because I was on call. I was coming in to see clients. I was almost managing people without getting paid for it. And I was doing so much. And then eventually I was supposed to go back into the social work department, the clinical department, when the hospital had its phase of opening, and I did. And there was a position, a lead social work position that opened. And I was running up with 3 Caucasian social workers. And now, mind you, I'm the only full-time Latina and minority in my whole department. Everybody else in my department, like we have some per diem social workers that were minorities, but full time it was me.
Right.
And I applied for this position and I didn't get it. And one of the things that hit me the most and why it fed into my imposter syndrome was because one of the people that got this lead position it was 3 positions that were up for promotion, was actually one of our interns that I had trained. So I was like, okay, that kind of hurt. That can hurt anybody, right? Because you're like, I'm highly qualified. I now been in the field for this long. I've been, able to prove myself in opening this admissions department and working with people tirelessly. I proved myself and I didn't get the promotion. And I had all the skills for it. I had all the qualifications. So that was kind of the start of me starting to think like, is this the right fit for me? And it still took me 2 years to leave the hospital. But, that was kind of the start of me trying to see, I'm not being crazy right now. I'm really, what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is legit. Like there is some oppressive stuff going on. I don't know why, I wouldn't have come up for the promotion. I don't know why I had to kind of fight and prove myself, because like 2 positions made sense of why they got promoted. But for me to like not have the promotion over my intern that I had trained, that didn't make any sense to me. And, that's one of a plethora of experiences that I had and challenges and, being a minority and trying to fight my way through. Even with clinical licensure too, like I had a lot of challenges with my clinical license and trying to advocate for myself. Because as you know too, even the process to get your LCSW is extremely hard, but the test is really, really hard. And when you're dealing on top of that with a work environment where it's just constantly a fight and having to say like, no, can you look at this way? Can, we look at this together? Are you looking at why this individual has these types of behaviors? Did you assess the family? Did you kind of look at things as a whole? And it's basic stuff that I felt like we should know. But I think that's where my like kind of my fault was, like thinking they should know better. We're social workers. People should know how to include cultural sensitivity in their psychosocial assessments. They should be assessing for how, this person's culture shapes this. Like a funny story is in the intensive unit that I worked at the hospital, Like we have people that will stay there months at a time because, they're psychotic, they can't get
Right.
stabilized, we need to place them. I had we had this client that was from India. And basically she used to they used to say hoard oranges,
Mm.
right? And then people used to get mad. The nurses and everybody got mad while she's hoarding oranges. But nobody stopped to ask her, like, what are you doing with the oranges? Like, is there something that is special to you with it? And little do they know that she's taking the oranges because she's using the skin of the orange to actually exfoliate her face. Like it's
Ah.
something that was important for her. In India, there is a lot of holistic approaches
Mhm.
as well. And it's something so easy that there's an annoyance to people and they're not really asking and assessing for and trying to understand like something so simple like that, something
Mm.
that's small compared to a million other things, but
Right.
it's something like that is really simple to look at and understand, why is this important for this person to have these things and do these things. The other thing was even, being mindful of food choices with people and respecting, kosher diets, respecting vegan diets. That's something that I often had to work with even the kitchen and the clinical team and trying to get approved for clients because those are things, that were good, like special to them. And those are
Right.
things that they needed to do. So just because they end up in the hospital doesn't mean that their life stops and that we have to completely make them adjust to our agenda and our
Yeah.
way we do things,
No, of
right?
course that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh man. that that's a whole lot, and it's real because I'm sure there's many other people who listen or watch go through the same things or have gone through same thing, similar situation. Shoot, even myself, I brought somebody on to a job and there was a promotion and that person ended up getting the job and I was there for a while. So I mean, it's happened to me. I mean, I haven't shared that story on, but before, but yeah, no, this stuff happens. So that was my first. I always got a three strike and I'm out rule. So that was definitely
Like the first
strike
one.
one. I think I might have actually been like strike two. So like, but that was a huge strike too. So but yeah, it's just a lot that we go through as Latinos. Like I know for myself living in Delaware, I'm still adjusting. Uh, 3 years and change into this state and trying to thinking I found a niche where I want to work at, and I'm still searching. So it's we do what we got to do. Make sure our bills get paid, kids are fed, roof over our head, and we keep trucking along till we find something that works. And I just leave it in God's plan, in God's hands. So that's all I could do. Oh man. So what else you got going on the rest of this year?
So, I mean, my plan is I'm still going to continue working at AmeriHealth. I do like AmeriHealth. I have a really great team in the rapid response team. So, meaning that we get a lot of very high risk emergent clients. So, I do get to deal with, a lot of things related to that. Um, as I'm slowly building up, Esmeralda Wellness Haven and taking courses, I think it's important for me to get comfortable again in working in a therapeutic setting with clients 101. I know it's something that I could probably go in, with my eyes closed, but
Mhm.
I think I owe it to them and owe it to me too to make sure that I'm relearning some of these skills and, trying to adapt into the holistic approach and wellness and seeing, if that's something that I really want to take and hone on and get, actual clinical certifications in. Right now, I'm really working into getting some like herbal based medicine courses that are kind of minor, more nutrition based, figuring out how herbs work with certain illnesses and symptoms. And I found like a community here. I'm actually outside of Baltimore, Maryland now. I moved here last 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I'm really happy here because I call it my mini New York. I feel like it's much more diverse. I feel great, stepping into a restaurant and working with people. And I'm also I'm licensed with my LCSW in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Delaware.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so I think it's been great to feel a little bit more at peace where I'm at and feel a little more connected to my community. That's been really helpful. And surprisingly, a lot of things in Maryland too, like at least here in Baltimore, is that they do have a lot of these courses of herbal medicine and things like that at really low cost. There's a lot of holistic shops that you can go to. And even with me working with my doctor, I've asked him, I said, hey, I have a passion in possibly incorporating this into my business. Like, can you help me connect with certain agencies or schools? Can you send me resources on that? And I've been able to work on that with my doctor too, which has been nice, to get resources and get connected because I'm still
Mhm.
adapting to the state that I'm living in now. And it's important to sort of network and work on that. So I say that I'm still really early on in the business because there's so much that I want to learn and bring in to people that, I'm hoping that I can kind of get these things done within the next couple months and get up and running. And prior to that, I'm probably going to start seeing individual clients one-on-one and sort of network myself in doing that. So I'm hoping to be able to do that. Um, and personally now, I'm getting remarried, so I have a lot of stuff with going on with that now and working.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wedding planning.
Yeah, yeah. So wedding planning, social working, and getting to know, just some herbal medicine classes and things like that where I can get connected. Um, I'm still also thinking like if I want to get Reiki certified. I know there's a lot of conversation on that,
Hmm.
but I was kind of not educated on it too much. Like I just don't know so much about it. And I know that a big part of Reiki, at least in the level one certification, that there isn't, any like personal touching or anything like that when it comes to healing the body and using energy forces and things like that for within. So I think because people think it's solely connected with when they think about spirituality, they think about religion.
Hmm.
And it's not the same, when you're dealing with a holistic approach, even with like acupuncture and things like that. So there's so many different things that go into Reiki, that go into working with herbs. But one thing I do want to be clear is that I'm not going to be like prescribing herbs or anything like that. I definitely want to stay within my scope of practice. And I think that if I have to prescribe it, I got to know chemistry, and chemistry and me don't hang out very well. So so that's a no for me. But, I for sure want to be able to at least say, hey, like, have you tried this tea so that it can help you sleep, right? Or have you been able to, do you want to take these different herbs to kind of help you soothe when you're dealing with your anxiety? So it's simple things like that that I could be able to kind of introduce as an immediate skill. And since it's still very much new to me, like I learned it personally, a little bit of it from my grandmother, but because my grandmother was a curandera, died at 94 and didn't have schooling, a lot of the herbs that, she educated me on are not even like the words that we know in the herbal books. Like
Mm.
it's very different,
Yeah.
from what she used to phrase it as. So I think that I'm definitely still trying to find like that huge like connection of what exactly is gonna the ultimate outcome is gonna be for Esmeralda Wellness Haven. But I know for sure is that I want to be able to honor my grandmother, incorporate all my skills, and also give back in a way that could be, given back to folks with wellness, with wholeness in a holistic manner. And I want to teach them like these type of skills. 'Cause there's a lot of misinformation out there, even with food, with
Oh
diet.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and even accessibility to food, that's a big thing in
Hmm.
social work in general
Yes.
too, and in other fields that accessibility to food is hard for some people. So just educating folks on how to be able to do with what they got, right, and help them
Hmm.
sort of heal their bodies from within with food and how food can be their medicine.
Right. No, I like that a lot. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Where could people find you or reach out to you?
So I am working on a website, and I think we might have to kind of like host each other again. Once I have everything up and running, I've actually established the LLC just 2 weeks ago. So
Super
I'm gonna,
fresh, super
I
fresh
know,
LLC.
yeah, it's super fresh. After it took me like, girl, you got to do this. Come on, you got to get on it. So as you know, the process with getting all your paperwork and everything together and your funds, like that takes a little bit, but I for sure want to be able to come back and talk a little bit about how to connect with me. And I'll be sure to share that with you so that you can pass it along as well.
Sure, awesome. Anything, by all means, definitely reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Well, good night from wherever you guys are watching.